And welcome back to coverage here at the new Capenna Championship. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon. And we've got another match to bring you here in the feature match area. Haven't seen him in a while. Paul Rietzl, the Hall of Famer. He got here via online and arena PTQ, or whatever we call them, a
qualifier,
arena qualifier. Yeah,
he's here.
Hall of Famers get to play in the day two. He used that. He said he drafted a sweet one, 7-0, and here he is. He's playing against Muhan Yu. Now, Muhan's in a really interesting position here. Of course, Paul not in contention for World Championship without, running the tables at this exact event, getting that top 6 finish. But Muhan is in the challenger race and has actually put himself in a very good position here, Paul, with a day 2, which, by the way, they're playing for right here. He's going to have a good chance at making a run at that World Championship seat. I mean, this is a huge match, and, all you have to do is beat a Hall of Famer. What's the big deal?
That's it. Of course, Muhan's going to have a couple of extra shots here, but Paul Rietzl, a Pro Tour champion, extremely extensive and impressive resume. Unsurprising to see him qualify through Limited, as that is kind of what he's known for. When it comes to creature combat, there's very few that can match up to Paul Rietzl's prowess.
He is incredible. If you've ever had a chance to watch him play, he hasn't been playing quite as much recently. I miss watching him play, though. I hope he makes a epic comeback, and we get to see him play a lot. Matchup-wise, we've got Azorius Auras in Paul's hands, and then Muhan has decided on Izzet Phoenix.
Yeah, and it's going to be a somewhat close matchup here. Now, Muhan does have a couple of innovations here. You see that unlicensed hearse in the main deck. Not especially good here, but very strong in the mirror. It's a card that'll give you a little bit of an edge in that matchup specifically. Muhan right now does have a Phoenix in the graveyard, and does he have the ability to play spell number 3? And I think he does.
Yeah, he just cast Faithless Looting this turn.
And then I see another Faithless Looting here.
You do indeed, Paul. That's exactly what you see there. And you know what that could mean, too. Another Phoenix, perhaps.
Yeah, I think Muhan would have, instead of even getting a Phoenix back, I think Muhan really would have preferred just being able to find a removal spell for this Light Pause. Because, sure, you play this Faithless Looting, you get a Phoenix back, but next turn, Paul Rietzl is going to untap with a Light Pause in play.
Yeah, that's scary. It looks like there's not going to be a second Phoenix here. So a productive turn for Muhan, but perhaps not solving the problem that he would be most concerned about with Light Pause. And Paul's got to be thrilled to get to untap with that.
Yeah, this is going to be a big turn here. Couple of ways to go about it. You can either try to see if you can find a way to get Light Pause bigger than 6 toughness. That's kind of the magic number. You want to try to see if you can get it so that it doesn't die to Unholy Heat, or you can just keep a blue up and have up that slip out the back to prevent removal spells from being able to kill the Light Pause. The Glaring Aegis does a really good job of pumping up the defense.
Solid footing in hand as well. That's one you don't see very often, but there it is. Not beneficial at the moment.
And Paul just happy just kind of keeping up the slip out the back and just kind of playing it a little bit slower. I mean, this is not a bad racing situation here if you're Paul, right? I mean, you're taking 6, but you're dealing 4 and gaining 4 next turn. It's going to be a lot more with all that glitters in his hand.
There's Unholy Heat now, but slip out the back in hand here for Paul Rietzl. A little bit too late for Muhan. He really needed that. He was 1 card away last turn.
Now, if you're Muhan in this situation, because you know that slip out the back is in Paul Rietzl's deck, likely want to wait until Paul's turn, right, to use the Unholy Heat. Paul will be forced to use the slip out the back, but that means Paul's not going to be able to get in that damage on the following turn.
That's right. Certainly relevant here, given the way that Light Pause has developed. So Muhan's going to hit his land drop here off of Iteration.
Trying to find a Phoenix, maybe?
Could see one. It is one actually off of
That is
Surveil.
a Phoenix.
Very nice. Well, was that 3 spells, or is this going to force him to use the Unholy
I
Heat
think
now?
one of them was an iteration, so it's a really awkward situation here if you're Muhan Yu, because you kind of want to save this Unholy Heat for Paul's turn to force him to use slip out the back and not get him to attack with the light pause. At the same time, you kind of just want to put maximum pressure and get an extra Phoenix in play.
Yeah, and he found a good proxy for Unholy Heat with Strangle, which this is probably the turn where it would actually be good. And
Yeah, but
maybe just worth it.
if Paul uses slip out the back, that's an extra counter on there. That's a 5/4, and then in all that glitters,
Yes.
I mean, we're looking at just a ton of damage.
Solid footing as well.
Yeah.
Like, these things are adding up really, really quickly, but it is going to be Strangle here from you. And there's slip out the back, so it gets bigger, phases out. This is a Phoenix coming into play. It's a nice attack. It's over half Paul's life total, but...
Paul's going to get it all back.
Yes, he is. He's going to kick it off with all the glitters. He could not wait to get that card on the stack.
Yeah, and this is gonna blank the Unholy Heat. Muhan's gonna need another removal spell if he wants to get this light pause off the battlefield.
Boy, this tempo, this sequence that we mentioned might cost him dearly here. There's Glaring Aegis. It's
Is this
up
gonna
to
be
10
lethal?
already.
11, 12. You get it? Yeah, this is a lethal attack.
Wow. He can just finish the deal here. Just anything that gives +1/+1 naturally will give +2/+2. And that was the game. Holy smokes. I think Muhan was like, okay, fine, this isn't optimal, but at least I get the Phoenix down. It's like, no, actually, you're dead. Wow.
And look, this, by the way, is why you would want to play light pause, Marshall. Right?
Seriously.
You don't get the disruptive elements necessarily because you don't have as many of the spell pierces, but you have the ability to just kill your opponent out of nowhere.
You know, it's easy to forget that sometimes, right? That the raw power really does add up in those scenarios where that can win you games where something more middle of the ground wouldn't have. You know, and you know, it's also true, of course, that sometimes the opposite is true. Right? Where something more middle of the ground is exactly what you need. And if you go all in, you'll lose. But boy, that power ceiling is really high on light pause. That was insane.
I'm still looking back at potentially that one key moment where Muhan had to make the choice. Do I want to play spell number 3 to get my Phoenix in play? Or do I want to keep up my Unholy Heat, get in for 6 this turn, basically time walk you, right? Because there's nothing else Paul could have done in that situation, other than cast slip out the back, and then try to see if you can get the Phoenix back in play on the following turn.
Yeah. Hey, and you know, the other thing too that we have to note is that worked out poorly in multiple ways for Muhan. Okay, sure, Paul put together the pieces and actually just won the game, but perhaps just as importantly, his creature was out of Unholy Heat range anyway, right? So that was going to be a really, really tough thing to get out of the sky there with what Muhan had after that. All right, well, Dragon's Race Channeler tradesies? Nope. Selfless Savior says, I'll stay here,
like,
thankfully.
Turn 1 Selfless Savior, turn 2 light pause. Should I trade?
Yeah. Or Core Spirit Dancer. Wow. Off the top of the library, good choices here for Paul. He can protect whichever of his 2 drops he wants. We're going to see Ledger Shredder for the first time, at least for you and I in the booth here, Paul. And this is a card that can do serious work for Muhan, setting up his game plan, getting those Phoenixes, finding the things that he needs.
Absolutely incredible card. Just in general, because this deck has no problem playing multiple spells in one turn, but also it's pretty insane in the mirror as well, because if your opponents don't kill it, they're also probably playing more than 1 spell a turn, right? And it triggers off of both sides. And the fact that this can then become a 4 toughness body against the deck like Phoenix, a 2/4 flyer is a very relevant body in terms of how the creatures match up in the the creatures line up in the matchup.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. In this case, generally speaking, Paul Rietzl will be able to make something much bigger than whatever the Shredder becomes, but that card advantage matters. The clock ends up mattering. Maybe not card advantage. That card selection matters and the clock as well. So far, no Phoenix in sight.
Paul
That
gets
poor Spirit Dancer's on 0 toughness. Poor thing. All right. Tormod's Crypt. You know, so far Muhan hasn't really been doing too much in the way of graveyard. You know, so far no Delirium, no Phoenix.
and couple of options here for Paul. You could choose to play Light Pause into Solid Footing, or you can just go with Staggering Insight plus Solid Footing. That's going to turn Course Spirit Dancer. That's going to give it 6 extra points of toughness, right?
Mm-hmm.
The +1/+1 from both the Solid Footing and the Staggering Insight, plus the +2/+2/+2 effects just by having the Core Spirit Dancer. So Muhan, you would have to have 2 removal spells.
It's a tall order. He's got Fry and Unholy Heat right now.
And Paul choosing to kind of take the middle ground here, attacking first to see if he does find. Oh, excuse me. Solid Footing, of course, has Flash, but seeing also if he can find a slip out the back or other ways to protect the Core Spirit Dancer. But now we're looking at
huge.
a 6/8. We're looking at a Fry, but keep in mind, Muhan does have the answer.
Yes.
If you go Fry and Unholy Heat, that gets the Core Spirit Dancer off the battlefield. However, Tormod's Crypt messes things up here for Muhan.
It does. It turns the Unholy Heat from 4 out of 4 on the Delirium scale to a nice 0. So that Core Spirit Dancer can also hit extra hard if it picks up Vigilance at some point here, because it does have more toughness and power. But right now, Muhan not having a lot of fun. Now, does he have enough to kill this thing anyway, though? Not quite, right? He's one short.
He's got 7 damage, Marshall. 7 damage.
So close. He probably thought, okay, I'm good to go. He's out of mana, and then Paul's like, Tormod's Crypt, go. It's,
yeah. Now, Muhan does have a couple copies of Brazen Borrower in his sideboard. Not sure if he brought it in. Oh! Well, no. I mean, you want the removal effects, right? If you do get this Core Spirit Dancer off the battlefield, but...
The question is, if you don't, are you dead?
Oh. Oh, and no, this was actually really good, because now you Unholy Heat.
Uh-huh.
That's going to deal 6 damage. Paul can respond by Tormod's Crypting, but you can respond by casting another Unholy Heat. And that'll get the Core Spirit Dancer off the battlefield.
Will it?
Yeah, that should be 8 damage, right? So you fizzle this one. You respond by playing
2.
So this one will deal 6.
Wow.
Right, with Tormod's Crypt on the stack.
Oh my god. This lined up so badly for Muhan into just right for Muhan. Wow. Finding that extra Unholy Heat unlocks his path perhaps to victory. Like, that was huge for him.
Now, Paul's still cooking here with gasoline. I mean, look at his hand, right? You can go Sram. You could Heliod's Punishment, the Ledger Shredder, if you feel like there's too much pressure. You can Light Pause. So a lot of options here still for Paul. Still at a healthy 18 life. And Muhan's just down to 2 cards.
Yeah. You know, this kind of went from like Paul was definitely going to win to Paul might win.
Right. Exactly.
Which is a big upgrade if you're sitting in Muhan's seat. All right. SRAM's going to hit. What else? And Light Pause? No, Heliod's Punishment, it looks like might be...
Yep, onto the Ledger Shredder. Remember, it also removes the text, although not for the first trigger. Ooh, and he finds an Arclight Phoenix.
Very
nice. Puts
that
into the bin.
Right after the Crypt got popped last turn, too. Ledger Shredder is what ultimately ends up in Muhan's hand for the turn here, but it looks like he'd like to see what he's going to hit with Expressive Iteration first.
Something like a land and a 1-mana spell would be ideal. No land, so will not be able to return Phoenix this turn. Still a great iteration, right? You're getting basically 2 removal spells in this situation.
He is going to need all of them as well. Light Pause and SRAM for Paul Rietzl. Demand answers.
Brazen Borrower seems like a pretty fantastic card in the scenarios where Paul basically just tries to go kind of all in on a light pause.
Yep. Which is exactly how Muhan lost game 1. So he's going to put Brazen Borrower into his hand, and then he found the Unholy Heat, which is going to take down SRAM here.
Don't think you want the canal. And we have Delirium again. That did not take long.
Wow, that's a quick rebuild.
Got Tormod's Cryptid in the previous turn. Still have the 3/3 Dragon's Rage Channeler.
Where were you, Selfless Savior? Bad dog. Too late to the party.
Yeah, and I suspect here we're just probably going to see Paul unload his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Does have the protection here from with the Selfless Savior.
Yeah, at 15 life, he's unlikely to die this turn. And he can just cash it all in.
Maybe the Glaring Aegis here just to make it not die to another removal effect. Oh, Sentinel's Eye, also great choice in case the Lipos does die in some fashion. Then you have an extra aura you can cast out of the graveyard.
Yeah, that could be really big. We see Fry in hand here for Muhan, so he does have the answer. Faithless Looting was the draw step. Also, the Brazen Borrower can do work. Paul set up a 4/4 flyer here for the Dragon's Rage Channeler.
Yeah, and Muhan does have pretty good shot at returning the Phoenix.
He definitely wants to get that Light Pause out of here, right? I mean, that's like stage 1.
Yeah, but he doesn't have a great way, especially with that Selfless Savior that's in play.
Yeah.
If you absolutely wanted to kill it, you'd have to do something like Brazen Borrower, the Selfless Savior, and then use a Fry or something on the Light Pause.
So does that mean that you just Brazen Borrower the Light Pause then? Just
you could do that, and you know, one of the nice things about what Paul did was fetch out the Sentinel's Eye, right? Because if Brazen Borrower happens, you can still replay Light Pause next turn and still have an enchantment to play.
Paul Rietzl, there's a reason that he's in the Hall of Fame. Channeler gets in, as it must. And he's going to pass the turn back. So he's going to save up that Faithless Looting for next turn. Heliod's Punishment number 2 for Rietzl. And he's going to go for that as well. Usually these Heliod's Punishments are enough to keep the opponent's creatures held down until the game's over, but occasionally they do work their way out of their punishment. See, the Shredder's already on 3. It'll go to 2.
Oof,
though for the most
huge.
part, Rietzl's deck has the ability to close out the game in the intervening turns usually. Jeez.
And splitting the difference here on the Sentinel's Eyes, making it so that it's going to be more likely or more taxing for Muhan to cast spells next turn with a 2/2 Esper Sentinel.
Aegis, Footing, and Flight are his options.
That is a giant Light Pause.
That is a 9/9 Light Pause.
9/9 Light Pause. Muhan does not have a way to get this off the battlefield. You see that Brazen Borrower. It's currently on an adventure. Might come back to chump block.
Now, Expressive Iteration could find him another one.
Yeah, he does have 2 in his sideboard.
It's starting to feel like he needs it.
Would have to find the other one. Probably gonna let Paul draw, which of course feels bad, but needs to find something.
Oh boy, opt looting. Looting is what he sees with Iteration. I mean, he gets to see a ton of cards, but
Yeah,
He'll run out of runway here pretty quickly.
if Paul can't find other enchantments, I suppose you could just try to chain some phoenixes together for some chump blocking, right? Certainly an option.
That would work.
And remember, the Heliod's punishment is not permanent, so might be able to eventually work his way back into getting those back into play. Muhan looking, searching.
Here's Faithless Looting.
Just all the phoenixes?
Yeah.
Those are not all the phoenixes.
Would have been a thing. He does have at least one in the yard, though, right?
I believe so. And he can play another looting if he ditches the canal and maybe the channeler.
Okay. Okay, he goes to combat. Okay. Here comes back the Phoenix, and yeah, safe assumption that it's not going to attack here.
This is the defensive Arclight Phoenix. So if Paul can find an enchantment here, right? Maybe find a way to give the Light Paws unblockable, or tap down the Arclight Phoenix.
Not quite this time. He finds a land. He's got Spirit Dancer, and then Luris and the Companion.
Yeah, I mean, this very much feels like a Luris Core Spirit Dancer go.
Yep.
And then next turn try to set up for a Light Paws kill, potentially.
It does feel exactly like that as well. He's applying tons of pressure here. The Phoenix is going to chump block, but he's sort of forcing Muhan to bring it back every turn now.
Oh, and just running the Luris instead. Sure.
The full mana efficiency here.
Yeah, I mean, with the Selfless Savior in play, you're feeling a lot better about this. Oh, and of course, Tormod's Crypt. Didn't get to see the graveyard, but yeah, that is pretty brutal, because now Muhan can't rely on just continuing to bring back the Arclight Phoenix in the graveyard to chump block this Light Paws. Don't know what's going on with that Ledger Shredder. Did he one more turn? He did. Okay, I think he's got maybe one more turn left on it. And I think the Channeler has 2. So getting close. Getting close. They don't interact particularly well with a 10-10. Yeah, and just Muhan has to fight through so much here. That Selfless Savior, just all kinds of headaches. Super problem. Not to mention, of course, the 10-10 that's in play. But right, that whole 10-10 thing. Yeah, that's also a problem, I guess. Boy, and Paul's drawing extra cards still from the Esper Sentinel, which is on 2 power, so Muhan's not interested in pain. Oh? Okay. Okay, I mean, again, these are answers. This doesn't allow Muhan to win. However, it is a way to reset the Light Paws. But again, Paul's got a Luris in play with the Light Paws. He's got his value engine. He's got the Selfless Savior. But hey, it at least means you're not dying to Light Paws next turn. That's right. When given the choice between lose and not lose, we know which one you're supposed to take. None of these have anything to do with win, by the way, but game theory suggests. Yes. Faithless Looting finds Opted in that Otawara. Oh, and this is rough too. So Paul waits for the Dragon's Rage Channeler mandatory attack here. Then he's going to use Tormod's Crypt, and now he can just eat up. Do we block with the Luris too for some life? Get the 3 life. Yeah. You know it. Paul Rietzl's not leaving any value off the table. Every point of damage matters. Oh, and my God. No, there's a pack of Selfless Saviors. Look at this. It's like a 3-mana Leer that you have in your hand every game. Not bad. Not the worst. Yeah, this looks like it's cruise control for Paul Rietzl from here. I can't imagine how Muhan can get his way back out of this with Paul at 15. There's no... With doubles, yeah. You know, you can sometimes think of like, okay,
bounce your flyer, do a thing, get back 3 Phoenix. But it's like, even that's just not enough.
Yeah, no, just the shields are up here. There's just not too many combinations of cards here that Muhan can find at this point. Not really what the Phoenix deck is good at. And there's just too many different ways that Paul can win this game, right? Yes. You've got the Sentinel drawing you cards. You've got the Protection and Selfless Savior. You've got the Luris Loop. You've got Light Pause.
The Galarian Aegis and Solid Footing combo lies in library here. But this Light Pause has been the absolute key to the match here for Rietzl thus far. It has generated huge amount of advantage and allowed him to live long enough to play Luris, which is now completely dominating.
Well, Muhan's going to get 1 turn.
Thanks to the Otawara putting Light Pause back in hand. 7 damage, no board state to speak of here for Muhan. I do believe that Shredder will be back on D next turn, but...
Right. Oh, there's a staggering insight on that as well. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, why not? No sweepers to really worry about.
Nope. And the Selfless Savior sitting there too. So I think the Shredder finally has worked its way out of punishment mode.
Fought through the punishment.
You came back just in time to lose. Let's see what happens here for Muhan.
I mean, if Muhan can find something... I mean, there's just no way. But if he did...
Right. It would be a miracle. Steam Vents, no. Stormcarved Coast, absolutely not. 2 lands in hand here for Muhan Yu, and there's just no way out. He's going to scoop him up to the Hall of Famer Paul Rietzl, showing us